Hey everybody, it's Mike from Get Your Rock Out, and I am here in chilly, cold, unbearable Manchester Academy with Josh from Northlane. How you doing, mate?
Going on? Yeah, I'm not bad, mate. I've had worse.
You're not used to this kind of weather, are you?
I am not used to this kind of weather, but as I said, there's been worse.
So literally just got off stage about about an hour ago. How do you think it went?
Yeah, I was pretty happy with tonight. You know, it was probably for me not the best show of the tour, but definitely not the worst either. I had a good night and had fun, and yeah, it was cool.
Was that then the weather affecting you, or just, you know?
Well, you know, when you're gigging every night, you'll have your best nights and your good nights and your terrible nights, and tonight just sort of fell in the middle somewhere.
It wasn't noticeable.
Yeah, well, it's just in my head, you know. It was a great show though. I was very pleased with it.
What's good about this venue is it's very good for acoustics, very good, you know, to get that reverb going. Yeah. So very powerful, very thunderous. You could feel the vibrations coming up all the way through you.
Too much, some would say.
No, I think it went well. I think you guys did very well. Hevel Burner just down there right now. They've got pretty much the same thing going on. So it was very full, very rich sound, and anything that may have been fucking up just a little bit wasn't immediately noticeable from the floor.
We're the kind of band that really needs like a real thick sounding mix to have real power in our music, I guess. So it's, you know, it's good playing rooms like this. But yeah, tonight was a little over the top, I think.
It was good though. Yeah. It was very interesting, like listening to the way the guitars kind of sounded, that kind of tone. It had an almost like a gent feel to it in a way. Yeah. Is that something that you've ever heard about your music?
Well, in a studio situation, like we'll always go for a more organic sort of sound than that. It's just sort of what really helps cut through live. I think like the way you dial in something to sit in the pocket of a mix live is very different to how you would get it to work in the studio. Normally, like, you'll want something a little snarlier sounding when you play live with a bit more mids in it, and that's generally what we go for. And the bass really makes up for it in a live situation, where in the studio, like, you're just trying to gel them together in a lot of parts rather than have them sort of sit a little more forward in the mix and be a bit more present. Yeah. Would
you say that you're still finding the sound then, or have you got like a blueprint for what you think Northlane is?
Like I think we've, well, do you mean sonically or in terms of our music?
Sonically and in terms of it. Let's go one after the other and see what you say.
Well, in regards to all of our tones and whatnot, yeah, I think we do have it pretty much dialed in. I mean, like, things change on a day-by-day basis depending on what the room sounds like. So, you know, no two shows will sound exactly the same, but generally, like, we're pretty happy with how all our stuff is sounding now, like with the new rigs we just built and whatnot. But you know, in a sense of our music, that's something that's more sort of continuously evolving and continuously changing and developing. And, you know, what we've written for our new album that's coming up is not like Singularity, and then Singularity was not like the record before it, Discoveries, which was not like the EP before that, which I'm not even going to talk about. But, you know, we're always constantly trying to develop ourselves to be the best that we can be and write music that interests us as well as our fans, and, you know, never trying to rest on our laurels and do the same thing twice. And you know, to an extent, like, our live sound sort of has the same thing going on, and I can tell you, like, in 5 years' time I won't be using the exact same gear I use today, you know, but, you know, we're happy with where we're at for now. Yeah,
it's interesting. I had this exact same conversation with the lead singer of Voivod a couple of years ago. He was talking about how from album to album there's a clear progression they have. Yeah. They start on one end of the spectrum, then they progress a little bit, then they go a bit further. It almost sounds like in about 10 years' time or something, or maybe not that long, you know, like in a little bit further in the future, you may hit upon something where you think to yourself, that's our record, like, that's the one that we're going to be remembered for, in a way. Not that you guys aren't good now, just kind of saying in the terms of the way it's progressing.
I understand what you're saying, and I think whether or not a record is the record that you're known for is really up to whatever the listener decides they're going to know you for. Because, you know, I've got bands that I love listening to that have records that speak to me, that to me, when I think of that band, it's the record that I go, yeah, I love that record, but it's not everyone else's favorite or necessarily their best seller or, you know, best well-known album. So, you know, it's kind of hard to put my finger on that. And I think, like, if you continue to evolve as a band, your sound will never really become stale. But if you just sort of continue to do the same thing, it's very easy to get lost in the mix of things, you know, because there's so much music. If you're not constantly reinventing yourself, then people almost don't have something to look forward to, because whatever they're going to hear is something they've already heard before.
Although by the same token, don't want to reinvent too much, because then you'll get people saying, I like the way they sounded before.
Well, you're always going to have that. You're always damned if you do and damned if you don't. I can tell you now, there's going to be people who, well, even with the single that we just put out, said I liked the old Northlane better. Then, you know, whatever, they're entitled to that. I got bands that I feel the same way about too. You know, I've got bands where I've got, 2 or 3 records from a certain period of time that I love, that I just don't even touch any other catalog, but I still love the band. You know, so I'm, you know, that's bound to happen to us. It's bound to, and that's okay, because, you know, everyone has their own tastes and, you know, things that they prefer.
If you had to point to something, then a single song maybe, or even an album that you've put out, not that EP, but something, you know, that you would point at and say, that's the best work we've done so far? Or is it all encompassing? Are you proud of everything you've done in a way?
I'm never satisfied with anything that we do, and I always want to make it better next time. So, you know, I could tell you today.
You could have made that sound very pessimistic right there. Yeah. It's like, I'm never happy with anything. Well, we have to keep going.
You have to be pessimistic as an artist to, you know, continue to be the best version of yourself that you can be. Because if you say, yep, I've written the best song of my career, that's it, then why are you still doing it? You know, why, like, no one ever wants to be that guy. So
you don't find that inhibiting in a way, then? You can't enjoy it too much in a way?
Well, after I've played the same song hundreds of times every night for a while,
fair point,
I could never enjoy it as much as I used to. But, you know, the crowd's what makes you enjoy it, I guess. Like, touching people with the music and seeing how they receive it is what makes you enjoy it. And, you know, I get kicks out of just playing my instrument too.
What do you think of British audiences compared to where other places you played, like mainland Europe, even back home? You know, just how do you think we do things?
Well, I think British audiences are very similar to Australian audiences. They're not too easy to win over, but if they like what you're doing and you're playing well, then they'll be really receptive and really supportive. You see that in Australia all the time. Australian crowds are very harsh critics, and they will let you know if your band sucks. and Britain is just the same. Very similar feeling to what we get when we play at home. I find, like, in America, a lot of things fly that don't necessarily fly anywhere else.
For example?
Well, just certain bands you'll see do really well over there, and they just can't carry that around the world. Because different tastes, of course, and then in mainland Europe it's different again, especially depending on what country you're in. Some places like Italy, they're just crazy about everything, and then some places about Germany, they'll be like, you know, I'm not quite sure.
Which is interesting, because very heavy scene in Germany. I guess you have to go above and beyond to impress that kind of crowd.
Well, exactly. Like, you can only do your best, and, you know, apparently what works is persistence, but you know, we're still chipping away at that one.
It's weird, like, over here it seems like everyone is still standing in the shadow of, like, Sabbath and Priest and all these bands that came from the middle of England, you know, all those years ago. I guess in Australia it might be the same with AC/DC. I don't know, what's the story there?
Well, the way I feel about music is you'll forever be standing in the shadows of who came before you, and if it wasn't if it wasn't for us, bands that we've surpassed, well, I wouldn't say surpassed, maybe surpassed in time, you know, in essence came before us, we wouldn't have become who we are. But you could always say the same for everything else that's happened in music, you know. Every movement, like rock wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for blues. Metal wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for rock. And those bands pushing their envelope. So all you can really do is just sort of, you know, tip your hat to them and try and learn everything that they have to teach you. Like I myself don't really listen to a lot of current music at all. And I'm a big fan of a lot of stuff that, you know, maybe my parents even thought was too daggy to listen to. But, you know, that's just what I like.
I was going to ask, is there anyone in Australia who you would recommend to people, but if you don't listen to that much current music?
Carnival. Right. To me, they're just like Parkway Drive are absolutely inspirational as a band. And you know, I love the people in that band and what they've done, and their music did a lot for heavy music in Australia. But Carnival speaks to me in a way that no other Australian band ever has. And I just find their music it's phenomenal. It's like everything I love about Tool just taken to the next level. They're phenomenal. I think they're coming here pretty soon too.
That'd be a dream tour for you then, to get on the bill with them.
We've toured with Carnival before in Australia, and it was quite interesting because we never toured with a band like that before, and we thought we were doing all right, and then we toured with them and they just completely redefined what we thought being a good musician and a good band was. Because when you play to a crowd like that, there's no gimmicks. You cannot try and win people over by putting on the craziest show they've ever seen and jumping around like an idiot, because they realize that what matters above all else is the music. And you know, they really had a lot to do with the development in our sound since then and the way we've done things.
I mean, it's just interesting. I was just thinking about Tool then in my head because of what you said.
I'm a huge Tool fan, absolutely huge Tool fan.
I've been to see Tool and there's no gimmicks, but a lot of people in the crowd are just too wasted to appreciate anything that's going on anyway.
Well, I mean, if that's how they like to enjoy their music, they're totally entitled to it, you know. If some people want to get really stoned before they watch a band like Tool, or you know, in the 70s the thing was to take acid before you see Pink Floyd, then, you know, all power to them. It's their experience and they can do with it what they wish, you know. In dance music you see there's a huge drug culture as well, and it's not so prevalent in metal, but, you know, I think all I care about is people having a good time, and, you know, if that's what they want to do, all power to them.
So how many more dates left on this tour now? You've got how many more in the UK, and then are you going a bit further on with this? Or?
Tonight's the last show in the UK, unfortunately. And I'm heading off to France tomorrow, and I think we've got 4 shows left.
Oh, I'm sorry you didn't think it was, it didn't go too well on stage then, I suppose.
Oh, like it wasn't my worst show ever, but it definitely wasn't the best of the tour either. It was sort of somewhere in between.
From where I was standing, it sounded good.
I had a great time, and I bet it sounded just fine out the front.
Well, we're going to have to wrap this up, I'm afraid, but do you have a message into the camera for all our readers at Get Your Rock Out? Well,
thanks for having a chat to me today, and you know, it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to come back to the UK. We're coming over for download, so I'm looking forward to that, and I'll see all your faces very soon. Thanks.
I'll see you there. Have a good tour, man.
Take it easy.
Cheers.